Unspoken Sermons by George MacDonald, Chapter 1, Series 3. To my wife, sun and wind and rain, the Lord is to seed his father buried, for he is the living word and the quickening spirit. Bordighera, May 3rd, 1889. The creation in Christ. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. John chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. It seems to me that any lover of the gospel given to thinking, and especially one accustomed to the effort of uttering thought, can hardly have failed to feel dissatisfaction, more or less definite, with the close of the third verse, as here presented to English readers. It seems to me in its feebleness unlike and rhetorically unworthy of the rest, that it is no worse than pleonastic, that is, redundant, therefore only unnecessary, can be no satisfaction to the man who would find perfection, if he may, in the words of him who was nearer the Lord than any other. The phrase, "that was made," seems, from its uselessness, weak even to foolishness after what precedes. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. My hope was therefore great when I saw, in reading the Greek, that the shifting of a period would rid me of the pleonasm. If thereupon any precious result of meaning should follow, the change should not merely be justifiable, seeing that points are of no authority with anyone accustomed to the vagaries of scribes, editors, and printers, but one for which to give thanks to God. And I found the change did unfold such a truth as showed the rhetoric itself in accordance with the highest thought of the apostle. So glad was I that it added little to my satisfaction to find the change supported by the best manuscripts and versions. It could add none to learn that the passage had been, in respect of the two readings, a cause of much disputation. The ground of argument on the side of the common reading seemed to me worse than worthless. Let us then look at the passage as I think it ought to be translated, and after that seek the meaning for the sake of which it was written. It is a meaning indeed by no means dependent for its revelation on this passage, belonging as it does to the very truth as it is in Jesus. But it is therein magnificently expressed by the apostle, and differently from anywhere else. That is, if I am right in the interpretation which suggested itself the moment I saw the probable rhetorical relation of the words. All things were made through him, and without him was made not one thing. That which was made in him was life, and the life was the light of men. Note the antithesis of the through and the in. In this grand assertion seems to me to lie, more than shadowed, the germ of creation and redemption, of all the divine in its relation to all the human. In attempting to set forth what I find in it, I write with no desire to provoke controversy, which I loathe, but with some hope of presenting to the minds of such as have become capable of seeing it, the glory of the truth of the Father and the Son, as uttered by this first of seers after the grandest fashion of his insight. I am as indifferent to a reputation for orthodoxy as I despise the championship of novelty. To the untrue, the truth itself must seem unsound, for the light that is in them is darkness. I believe, then, that Jesus Christ is the eternal Son of the eternal Father, that from the first of firstness Jesus is the Son, because God is the Father, a statement imperfect and unfit, because an attempt of human thought to represent that which it cannot grasp, yet which it so believes that it must try to utter it, even in speech that cannot be right. I believe, therefore, that the Father is the greater, that, if the Father had not been, the Son could not have been. I will not apply logic to the thesis, nor would I state it now but for the sake of what is to follow. The true heart will remember the inadequacy of our speech, and our thought also, to the things that lie near the unknown roots of our existence. In saying what I do, I only say what Paul implies when he speaks of the Lord giving up the kingdom to his Father, that God may be all in all. I worship the Son as the human God, the divine, the only man, deriving his being and power from the Father, equal with him as a son is the equal at once and the subject of his Father, but making himself equal to his Father in what is most precious in Godhead, namely, love, which is, indeed, the essence of that statement of the evangelist with which I have now to do, a higher thing than the making of the worlds and the things in them, which he did by the power of the Father, not by a self-existent power in himself, whence the apostle, to whom the Lord must have said things he did not say to the rest, or who was better able to receive what he said to all, says, "All things were made, not by, but through him." We must not wonder things into nonentity, but try to present them to ourselves after what fashion we are able, our shadows of the heavenly. For our very beings and understandings and consciousnesses, though but shadows in regard to any perfection either of outline or operation, are yet shadows of his being, his understanding, his consciousness. And he has cast those shadows. They are no more causally our own than his power of creation is ours.